So hello and welcome to the first IOSH Chiltern branch after hours question and answer session. We hosts me, Luke James, and Lee Owens from the Chiltern branch. Following a hugely engaging session on the 17th February on Life, L'Oréal's global approach to managing and controlling serious incidents and fatalities, incidents before they happen, we have the fantastic pleasure of welcoming back Malcolm Staves to the Chiltern branch. Due to the overwhelming number of questions that went unanswered on the last session, we have Malcolm back to answer some of those questions. So Malcolm, Lee, welcome to Chiltern After Hours. How's everyone doing today?
Good. Pretty good, thank you very much. It's here in Paris. It's a lovely sunny day. We must be at about 18 degrees. The only thing that's missing to this after hours chat is a packet of crisps and a pint.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Hopefully sometime soon we'll get there. So, Malcolm, we're going to be grilling you.
Oh, gosh. Okay, I'm ready. Do your best.
So, David Kelly, what software systems do you use to manage risk assessments within L'Oréal? Is it an in-house system or a tailored off-the-shelf system?
Basically, it's an in-house system. We use our own internal systems for risk assessments, for reporting, etc. And basically, we've used some external ones, and we've found that typically they weren't truly adapted to our needs and the evolution of our needs. So we have about 1,500 IT professionals within L'Oréal. So we dedicated to lots of stuff. So we tend to do these kind of things ourselves. Then we get what we want and it works how we want. We get the kind of reporting, the inputs exactly to our needs rather than trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
We have a question from Mark Flavel. Are managers given any upskill around safety, or are they able to identify hazards themselves rather than the HSE?
Well, first thing is, I would take that one step further, is that the people that are on the shop floor see the risk, know the hazards, know their jobs better than anybody else. So I would actually have taken that question one level below. Within our risk assessment program within L'Oréal, it's led by our managers. Our managers are trained in order to be able to manage and coordinate the risk assessments with the teams, but we need it to be with the teams. They get input and help from the local environmental health and safety professional, but that's mainly giving them guidance so they follow the method, and where needed, have an input on expertise. For example, if a risk assessment, all of a sudden we were talking about ergonomics, or we were talking about explosion hazards, and there you need an expert input into that. So it's a mix. But the manager's role is to manage. The manager's role is to lead and coordinate and bring the right people together. So, question's a good one, but I think it goes beyond that, I must admit.
Okay, thank you.
I'm quite surprised actually, Malcolm, that you didn't have like a health and safety qualification. That kind of took me back a little bit. I was like, okay.
I was strange.
Yeah, but okay. In charge of health and safety, he hasn't got that, so.
I think I have a lot of experience in the area. I have an engineering background, so you can take me even now. I can go into any kind of manufacturing plant, and I understand about the flows, the pressures, the temperatures, the way things all interact together. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of what we do in health and safety, there's part of it which is common sense, how you see risk, but there's a part of it where I have a lot of expertise is on the system and getting the system to work and give you the outputs. And I've also invested a lot of time understanding people, understanding organizations. And I think when you have a senior position within an organization, whether it's a region, a zone, a division, or something like that, it's not only about health and safety, it's also about the people, understanding people. And as I said before, also being able to sell and market what we do. I think the days are gone when an occupational health and safety professional comes in and said, I'm going to show you and tell you how to do risk assessments, you need to do a risk assessment. I think the world has changed. And I think we have to change with that as well. So yeah, I mean, maybe somebody who had more of a qualification could have done my job better than me and would have done it differently. But I think the proof of the pudding is we have, I believe, and we have a good culture within L'Oréal across the board. Our performance is exceptionally good, which I you know, which we don't talk a lot about because I think you need to be humble about performance, but normally our performance is pretty good. So the output of the approach we have is a high-performing team, high-performing company.
That's what you want.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, do you think I should have a qualification?
No, I just, you know, when you just think, oh, okay, you must have like a CV as long as your arm, where it's got all of these qualifications to health and safety. And then
I spent a lot of time on and doing webinars, and listening to people. You know, most of the systems I have in L'Oreal I've stolen from somewhere else, from another company. You know, that there's nothing new and different that we have. So, you know, it's maybe I'm just good at stealing and transforming it elsewhere. But
we have got another question from Jessica Lee. What control methodology do you adopt after the identification of SIF?
okay, SIF as in serious injury and fatality event. Okay, so that was what the presentation was about, which was LIFE, which is our life-changing incident and fatality event program. And as I said, that's our approach. So basically we have 270 top-down requirements from corporate. That's every single site. And the sites themselves, including the admin sites, have to report into us on a monthly basis of where they are with respect to that compliance. So that's the first thing. That's top down. We're dealing about people dying potentially or irreversible accidents, and we don't leave it open to chance, right? After that, our senior managers, when they visit the sites, they have a specific requirement to look at what's important, and that's life, right? They follow through with the action items, and you know, we're not perfect. All our life requirements are not 100% in every single site, etc. We have acquisitions that we then have to bring on board. But the senior management, they have dashboards that are developed by the local teams, and they have to follow them when they visit the sites. At site level, because as you're probably thinking here, at site levels, having a top-down approach, it's easy to miss something, right? You know, we don't know at corporate level, zone level, everything that goes on a site. So that we developed a program called GAP, which stands for Global Hazard Assessment Procedure. Plus we like our acronyms in L'Oreal. And basically that requires the health and safety steering committee at site level to answer the question, how can we have a fatality or an irreversible accident at our site outside of the top 270 items that come down on them, and then they have to follow it through. And that's a meeting run by the management team of the site. It's not an EHS meeting, with the chairman has to be the site manager as well. So they have to do that. And then finally, just to wrap everything up, the senior EHS directors of the zones, they visit sites and they have a focus on these kind of things, the most important thing. And then every 3 years, for a factory, and every 4 years for the rest of the sites, we have an external, what we call environmental health and safety risk audit. It's not compliance, it's risk. It's based on risk. And one of the first thing they do is they go through the declarations by the site with respect to life and what they found in GAP, and check it with the actual reality to make sure that, you know, they're not giving us some bullshit, if I can use that expression, but what they're doing is actually addressing the problem. So, and what's important here is that when you, for anybody out there, is when you put in a program, whether it be a risk assessment program, or a SIF life program, or anything else, I would say to everybody, you should deal with it as a mini system. So you should look at the plan, the do, the check, the act, the audit, and just to make sure that your little program around risk assessments is a solid system in itself. And that's what we do, and it works. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of words in the question, but there was a long answer.
Mike Masted, he would like to ask, are your safety moments done with directors and senior managers? And how do you ensure that this happens if they take part?
Well, it'd be a bit of a shame if I said no, they weren't. But yes, they are. I mean, it's fundamental. We believe, I believe as well, is that it's all around leadership. You know, you could have the best systems in the world. If your leaders are not walking the talk, then it's not going to happen. And we go one step further as well. We talk about walking the talk at a moment of truth. You know how many people, they talk about walking the talk, but when it comes to the crunch, when it comes to that hard decision, they don't make it. They're not walking the talk. So we call that a moment of truth. So we promote and we talk about that all the time to say to people, we know you're going to have hard times. Sometimes you can't always walk the talk, but when you can't, you're at a crossroads, and it's a moment of truth. But going back to the question, these safety moments for us are through what we call our measure program. And measure is another acronym which stands for measuring effectively safety using recognition and realignment. Okay, it's a program that drives our site senior managers to get off their backsides, out of their office, on the shop floor, to look at somebody like you, Luke, in the eyes and say, look, your safety is the most important thing to me. And for the next 15 minutes, we're going to talk about what you do and how you do it. So first, I'm going to watch you 15 minutes, and then we're going to have a conversation around how you're doing that. We don't talk about the equipment, that's risk assessment. We talk about you, what you're doing, your acts, your actions, etc. And that we require globally. On top of that, every manager is supposed to do that once a month, okay, minimum. And the number of visits that a site makes per month is reported to zone and to corporate, along with the immediate and the deferred action items that come from that visit, right? And those we require as a leading KPI, leading indicator. 90% of all action items need to be closed per year as well. So not only do we monitor the number of visits minimum for a manager, but also that visible leadership again, that they actually close out their action items. And if I can add just one more thing before you go to the next question, right? What is also important is the relationship between the manager and the employee. So one of these people, when they do a measure visit is in twos. One of them is in the direct line manager of the person being visited. And the idea is when they identify an action item, you try and resolve the maximum number of action items there and then. Even if it's a little bit of DIY, it's not perfect, right? And because you then do that with the person, it's visible leadership, employee engagement all together. And then maybe you go away as the manager and you have to do something extra to make it more of a permanent requirement. And what you can't do as a manager, you can't subcontract that action item to anybody else. You can project manage it with the EHS team. You can project manage it with HR, but you have to be the visible leader for that action with respect to your employee, your person in your team. It's a very powerful system and it works for us, but that's only done by our line management. And it's all about aligning the management and getting them out on the shop floor, talking safety to their employees. It's a beautiful system.
That sounds really good.
When we talked about gathering data earlier, and you have these meetings with the guys down at shop floor level, do you actually gather that data? Do you take it on board? And if you do, how far do you take it into your central system?
You mean the data that comes from these site visits or these measure programs?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Not at that kind of level of detail, we don't, because at corporate level or even at zone level, there's too much information. But the actual sites are required to look at trends of the action items. They monitor closely which manager maybe hasn't been doing the visits. For example, you might find that one manager really likes it, and instead of doing one a month, he does 2 or 3. So your statistics for the site, when I see them, look good, but locally, you've got a manager that's not pulling his weight. And on top of that, the EHS people are trained to be coaches in this, and once per year as a minimum, they need to go out with the people and watch them doing the job and coach them if there's a deviation. As part of the role of the EHS function is also to look at the data and say, okay, is there a trend? Are we finding that a lot of these action items are ergonomic related, or are they concerns about using knives or whatever it is, and they treat it locally? At my level, I don't get involved with that. All I need to see is the managers at site are going out there and doing these visits, and that they're closing at least 90% of their action items over a year. At my level, but at site level, you need to get more involved in the detail. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Next up, we have a question from Luke James. So you're having your office redone. What colour are you going, Malcolm? How's it going? How's it getting on? Good?
Well, actually, I've definitely gone for Chelsea Blue. I've got some quite modern wallpaper that looks a little bit like leaves and stuff like that, but it's all themed with the Chelsea Blue color. But there's a bit of grey in there as well, and I've got recycled desk. It's from recycled pallets and stuff like that. So that's a little bit of like your normal sort of like wood color and stuff. But definitely Chelsea Blue, my friend. It's definitely a
I
good
thought I'd
question.
hit you with those hard questions, Malcolm.
Throw me,
want to know about.
throw me.
So the next one is from Graham Wales. What efforts are being made to influence throughout your supply chain in the companies with perhaps less robust organisations or enough resources allocated for occupational safety and health?
That's a brilliant question, and again, we could spend a whole morning on this and debating it. Supply chains are always a problem. If you're talking about supply chain in the UK, you're talking about supply chain in Germany, France, the United States. Normally, the legislation is pretty good, and you don't have to worry too much. Saying that, when in some countries, the safety requirements are not at the same kind of level, respect maybe even for human life, etc., is lower, then I think organizations like L'Oreal have got a responsibility to try and make a difference to people's lives, those people that are working there. And what we do in L'Oreal, we have two main approaches at the moment. One of them is that there is an external audit for all new suppliers of raw materials. That's a quality, environment, health and safety audit, and it's managed by the quality department of corporate. And what happens is if the results for health and safety is less than 95%, it comes to me, and we can either require more action items in order for them to qualify as a L'Oreal supplier, or we could actually say to them, sorry, this is not acceptable. We can't go forward with you at this moment in time. The other thing that we do from an EHS point of view, and this is managed by my team, any subcontracting manufacturer that uses hazardous raw materials is automatically audited for environment, health and safety from a risk point of view. Also for major compliance, but also from a risk point of view. We also do the same for distribution centers that are third-party distribution centers as well. And that doesn't matter whether you're in the United States, France, the UK, or whether you're in Vietnam, Australia, etc. We do that worldwide. And above that, at a higher level, which is not necessarily part of my responsibility, our purchasing department do corporate social responsibility audits for suppliers across the globe, which many large multinationals do. And there is a lot of questions in there that are relevant to environmental health and safety. One of the things it's important when we're talking about supply chain is I'm not a great believer of saying, you don't meet our standards, you're not what we want, therefore, end of story, we don't want you. I think we need more flexibility to try and educate and bring along with us and improve the people in our supply chain. Because if we said to them, oh no, you're not going to work for us, they'll end up working for somebody else, and the problem will still be there with the way they maybe care and look after for the people. So what we tend to do is, if they have a low scoring on the EHS risk audits that we do, we actually, through our third-party consultancies that we use, we actually work with them on to develop an action plan. They agree to the timing, the schedule of that action plan of what they're going to do to come to the next level. And we then re-audit them and maybe revisit them in maybe 6 months, 1 year's time, and hopefully they've then improved and moved further down the roadmap. But at the end of the day, if we find that they're not interested and we're really concerned about the quality of the way that they're protecting the people and their employees, then I'm afraid we, at this moment in time, we would probably not do business. We won't do business with them. It's a sad thing, but supply chain is still an area that needs to be developed, and I think companies like L'Oreal and other major organizations need to continue to do what they're doing.
David Kelly had a question. Approximately what percentage of turnover is allocated or proportional to health and safety? If the question is about money and financial resources.
It's not. I mean, it's easy for me to say I work in a big organization. I have 650 EHS professionals within our network worldwide. At global level, I don't follow costs at all. We have our programs, we put them in place, we expect the sites to do it because it's the right thing to do. And in the 12 years that I've been in L'Oreal, I've never, ever been challenged on the price of deploying something that at the end of the day protects people, reduces accidents, prevents fatalities. Don't get me wrong, it's not been the same in other organizations, but I feel very lucky to be in an organization where they really want to put people in the center and they want to really make sure that, you know, people go home safely. Does it happen like that in every, can I guarantee it's like that in every single corner of the world? Of course not. But from where I see it, you know, it's not a question of money. It's not a question of financial resources at all.
No, it's good.
It doesn't mean, to put it doesn't mean that the bad decision now and again is made in a plant at the other side of the universe or whatever that I just don't know about it. But typically it's not an issue.
No, good, good.
And then we have Rohit Sharma. I'm not sure maybe he's the Indian cricketer. I'm not sure what he was doing coming along to the session, but he was there. So thanks, Malcolm. Interested to know, as organisations talk about HSE performance is vital for better productivity and resilience, how is your organisation promoting business value internally and externally?
Yes, that's a good question, because it's, you know, very often occupational health and safety professionals like ourselves, we just do our job. We see the number of people being injured reducing. We think our systems are working well, etc. But you know, this is a very, very good question, because if you think on the back of COVID and everything else that's going on, I mean, what we do actually build is organizations, in theory, where people feel safe, right? We protect them. We do things for the betterment, not only for them, but also for their families, because of course, if anybody has an accident at work, it has an impact beyond work as well. And I think if you invest in people's health and safety and they feel that you care for them, really, really care for them, and it's not just you're doing it because it's the right thing to say, but you really, really feel it. I think what you do is you create a workforce that feels safe. It helps with talent retention. It helps from the ethics point of view, from a trust point of view. It all comes together through what I believe we do as occupational health and safety people. So it's vital that more and more we talk about how that impacts the business. What's the value creation of what we do to the business? The issue being is it's very intangible, right? You can't turn around and say, because we've done this, that, and the other for health and safety, we've actually had an impact on talent retention. We've had an impact on trust. We've had an impact on giving people a sense of security and just great place to work. It's intangible. But what we do within L'Oreal, and to try and is we include health and safety questions within a survey, a global survey, and it gives you a feel or a smell of what the culture's like as people are sort of like feeling it themselves. And about 12 years ago, to help with that, we developed what we call our health and safety culture audit program. So all our sites, from except for stores, are on a program of every 3 years a culture audit, basically, and that includes going in there and just seeing how things tick over. There's 12 main categories, and each one of those categories is a roadmap. So we place you on the roadmap for each category, and from that you can see where you need to evolve in a particular area of the culture. It's worked extremely well for us. All our sites, it's linked to the DuPont Bradley curve, which we have a hybrid of, which I introduced, and it seems to work well. But it gets people on that journey of thinking about culture and culture development. And we've been doing that for 12 years, absolutely fantastic. And then the other thing that's helping us at the moment sort of promote the business value externally is our Safe at Work, Safe at Home program, which we're partnering, as you know, with Rosberg globally, and that's exporting our culture into the family, into the local communities, and into other organizations. And in fact, as you probably know, we sponsor a global award, which is called Safe at Work, Safe at Home, which is open to any company except for L'Oreal. And that's hopefully driving that change for people to try and for us to try and promote giving back, but only by L'Oreal, but by other companies as well. And then finally, within that same kind of remit, we've recently helped co-found the Global Coalition of Women in Safety Networks. And that's all about promoting equality, diversity, and inclusion within our profession. And based on what I've seen, based on the research that I've read out there, you know, when you have better equality, diversity, and inclusion, you end up making better decisions. Better decisions in our profession simply means that we save more lives and reduce injuries, so it makes sense. You know, so HSE performance is not necessarily vital for better productivity and resilience, but health, safety, environmental culture definitely is. That's where I would answer that, and that's my experience. It's not the performance, it's not the lagging indicators that say you're, you know, like the lost time rate and etc. that says you're it's better for productivity and resilience. It's how you treat your people that results in the better productivity, better resilience, better agility, and all those kind of stuff that helps define what the organizational culture and the value creation by what we do all the time. So yeah, no, I feel it's a very good question. I think it's very, very important that the IOSH professionals worldwide, wherever they are, wherever you guys are, get more and more into this and make that connection between what you do and the creation of value within business.
You've talked quite a few times about different programs that you've implemented into L'Oreal. How much time and how much personal effort does it take for you to actually get these started, implemented, and to actually get the ball rolling across the group?
Wow. Honestly, Lee, sometimes it's really, really hard work. And it also depends on what kind of company you're in. When I worked in at the aluminium industry, very manufacturing orientated, things came down quite quickly, if you know what I mean. In the organization where I am at the moment, it's all about collaboration and teamwork in developing things. And that can take you quite a while because you've got to take into consideration that some people might disagree with it. Some people have never come across this type of program before. And so there's discussions happening. And then what we do within L'Oreal, once we decide we're going to do something, we create a work group. We may bring an external consultant in to work within the group with us, where we don't have the expertise, and we design something that at the end of the day is made for L'Oreal by L'Oreal. But after we do that, we then have to do test runs, and we might do a test run in an admin site, a test run in an R&I site, a test run in a couple of manufacturing sites, and all that takes time, and it's sometimes hard work, but you know, I think if you take the time to get the people on board, give them the time to discuss it and debate and argue, then you create something that'll then go much, much quicker. But starting takes a lot of time, which is a bit against our typical English culture. If we take our culture, you know, very often we have an idea, let's go with it, let's put it in place, let's drive it. The problem very often is we don't have everybody along with us. And within the L'Oreal culture, they prefer that kind of approach. And it's one of the big adaptations that I've made in coming to L'Oreal from the way that I manage, the way that I try and deploy things compared to when I was working in the aluminium industry. So, but it takes its time, you know, but if you want something to be sustainable, you want it to work in the long run, you want people to be convinced it's the right thing to do, you've just got to put the preparation in.
Ian Dawson would like to know, how do you improve health and safety culture, and how do you improve the mindset of that?
Wow. So I think it goes back to a lot of different things. I think the culture audit program that I mentioned sort of helps. I think people seeing that you're taking care of them at the basic level with the risk assessments, identifying how they can be injured, involving them in that decision-making process is all part of it. And I think we have a program, we got Safe at Work, Safe at Home that we've discussed, and that gives people a sense of pride in what we're doing. And if you get people to go into the home environment talking about safety because you've given them a fire extinguisher or because of some kind of training that they have, they can spread the culture at home a little bit, which is a good thing, but also it makes them more proud of what we're doing in safety. It helps change the way they think about it, that they then bring back into the work environment as well. So it changes the culture. Within the ROSPA program, we also have many sites that go in for the ROSPA awards, and what that does for us is it gives each site an individual path of improvement. New eyes, a jury, they look at it, they see things that aren't quite right, things that are missing from the program, and it helps them move along. But on top of that, the site get a recognition. The work that the people have done on the shop floor, the EHS team, they get recognized for what they've done. And that's great. And we start to create a sense of pride in safety. And if you do that, just like a lot of people have pride in what they do for the environment, etc., then we're on the right path to creating the culture. But culture is complex. Culture is very, very complex.
It's difficult, really, isn't it? Because I know me and Lee have got, some manufacturing staff, and then we've got some finance staff. Maybe they see it differently, that how the culture is, depending on where you are in the business, what job you're doing.
Yep.
So do you have to change your message?
Completely. I mean, I think my role and the role of the occupational health and safety professional is to get the best out of people and to get people individually to see the benefit of safety, even though it sounds a daft thing to say. I can't tell somebody to get it. I can't tell somebody to lead safety if they don't want to. So somehow we've got to make safety personal to an individual to find the way that it makes a difference to you, or to Lee or to somebody else. That's in admin, that's in marketing, that's in manufacturing. And our approach is change as a function of where the culture is of the organization. As I said before, very, very important. Not to try and do something that's maybe for an interdependent type culture when the actual organization is maybe in reactive situation. But the other thing to remember as well, if you take the Bradley curve that we use, or what we call the L'Oreal culture curve, you can apply it for individuals as well. We're all on our own individual journey, and we're not all in the same place on that journey. And I think as soon as a health and safety professional can realize that, then he will start to adapt the messages as a function, and the language as a function of the people that are in front of him. Why? Because he wants to take the person to the next level. He wants to help them as an individual improve. And if you target, for example, senior managers or managers that have teams, if you get that right, then they have an impact on their team, right? So I think you have to pick the right kind of battles to have. But just to think that you can put in a behavioral-based safety program on a site and everything's going to be fine and everybody's now going to get it is absolutely crazy. And I think it's a failing of our profession sometimes. We think that we put in a program and everybody now will get it. It's much more than that.
On one size fits all model, is it?
Yeah, and I think if there's one thing whereby I've also believed, and we try and take the professionals within L'Oreal in this direction, is that if to be good at health and safety, it's not about the qualifications. It's not all necessarily about being able to do good risk assessments. At the end of the day, it's all about understanding people, the way they're wired inside, and how you can motivate them to do the right thing when it comes to health and safety, whether it be individually or whether it be their teams. And so I'm a great believer that if you want to do well in our and lead health and safety teams, be a good manager, drive things, you need to get more and more into understanding people and the psychology of people.
Okay.
So that's for you to, if you want to do well and get promoted, that's where you should be looking next. Develop the human aspect of it, understand people more.
The people that will flourish.
Yeah, do a psychology degree or something.
Oh, thank you. Have you got one, Malcolm?
No, I haven't got one. I do have a master's, but it's in environmental management. I never told you that one. So I'm very qualified in the environment, or I was. But I've done a part of a degree in ergonomics, which included the human aspects. And honestly, I've spent a lot of time watching YouTube things on psychology, psychiatry, human factors, neuroscience, something that they call heuristics, which is why you do what you do, how your brain's wired and works, just to make sure that I can understand people better, because that's my job.
Thomas McCloy, can you provide an overview of the core KPIs you use within L'Oreal?
Wow. We have a lot of KPIs, okay? But if I talk, he's mentioned factory there. So if I talk a little bit about more of operations, sort of we probably have around about, well, at least 10 what I call main leading indicators. And like I mentioned before, you remember I said that each one of our programs is like a mini system in itself. Well, if you want to make sure that a mini system works, you need a KPI. You need and that KPI is a leading, from us, it's a leading indicators. So we have the ones around life that we've already mentioned, where we monitor the compliance with the requirements. We have the measure ones for the line management behavioral-based safety program. I mentioned during the presentation our program called SIOs, which is Safety Improvement Opportunities, which is like a hazard reporting, and where we monitor the number of them, these that have been identified, and the number closed. And again, they're closed by the line manager, the direct line manager. We track EHS training hours for every single site worldwide as well. And all these together are sort of like our main leading indicators. We have other ones based on risk assessment as well, number of steering committee meetings that within the site, EHS steering committee meetings. All these things drive the system, and the output is our lagging indicators. So we don't put any focus on literally reducing the accidents, literally reducing near misses. We believe that they will reduce because of the output of the collective output of our leading indicators. Don't get me wrong, if we find that the lagging indicators are not going in the right direction, then we'll have to revisit the programs and the leading indicators we have. But our focus is on the leading indicators. However, at senior level, the higher and higher you get in the organization, the senior managers, very often, they only want one or two figures to focus on, right? And they need to be able to understand those figures. So at very senior level, we still use lost time rate. We still use total incident rate, which then includes lost time plus light duty plus medical treatment, employees and temporary workers. Because behind it, they can understand it. These are not manufacturing people very often. They understand that behind a lost time rate is somebody that's not at work. And if they're not at work, it means there's an impact on the family. If you talk to them maybe about measure visits, they're going to say, what? They might not be able to relate to it. So you need to be able to talk the right language to the right person, like we were talking about before. And don't talk to finance people about measure visits, safety improvement opportunities, etc., because it means nothing to them. They like hard figures. So
yeah.
And then all of these leading and lagging indicators are monitored at division, zone, and corporate level, and we tend to use them as being like red flags in order to give us identify whether something might be going wrong in a particular area, or all of a sudden manual handling. We're getting a lot of manual handling accidents as an example, and then we do, from a global point of view, we would then send out communications to try and raise that.
A quick question from myself, Malcolm. We've talked about programs quite a lot, and I'd like to bring perhaps a little bit of product into that. If you had something that was really, really close to your heart and something you really want out there within business, what colour of lipstick would you use to promote it?
Wow, that's a really, really good question. Now, I would have to have a look at our. If you could ask me a question like that, I'm going to do some marketing, right? L'Oreal owns, from what I can gather from talking to a lot of ladies, one of the best brands in lipsticks around, right? And that's Yves Saint Laurent. I mean, apparently it's really, really top. And when we look at the colors and all the rest of it, you know, if I wanted to wear a lipstick and I wanted to make a statement, I'd go for red. I'd definitely go for red. I think it's a very powerful color. My friend Louise Hoskin, who you know, would probably tell me not to use pink for lots of reasons. But, you know, Lee, I think next time you interview Louise or next time you have her at a Chiltern meeting, you should ask her about pink or red lipstick. It's not a really question. That was so
I could certainly do that. I thought I would just explain it for a moment.
My friend.
Oh, you're all right. Don't mention it. On to a more serious note, we have a question from Thomas Baxter. As a top-tier health and safety manager in the UK, I understand the level of commitment to COMA standards. If applying outside of the regulatory controlled areas, how do you manage the CI element of COMA? All those plants, as we know better, they are harder to manage than the regulator pushes. I'm sorry, that was quite a question.
It was, and I'm taking CI means continuous improvement.
I assume it does.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, this is a new initiative of ours just over a year ago. So going back on the history, so everybody knows that the COMA regulations comes from the European Union level because of an incident that happened in Seveso in Italy many, many years ago. And it's very often called the Seveso Directive. And it's for those sites that if they have a major event, it can have a significant impact on the local population. And there are certain ways to classify yourself if you're in Europe to say, yes, you are a COMA site or the equivalent of a COMA site in a different country besides the UK. And therefore, there's all these special extra requirements on you just to make sure that if anything goes wrong, well, to make sure something doesn't go wrong, firstly, to try and prevent it. But if it does, what are the emergency procedures that you put in place? There was a major event in France in a place called Lubrizol facility, big fire and all the rest of it caused a lot of external damage. And within L'Oreal, we asked ourselves the question, could that kind of event happen to us? And we have a number of Seveso sites in Europe, but we have similar sites elsewhere in the world that are obviously not Seveso because they're not in Europe. So we decided that we would standardize that requirement, the equivalent to Seveso, put it in place worldwide. So I now have an internal Seveso site system, and I have Seveso sites maybe in the United States, in China, in India, etc., whereby we treat them as if they were located in Europe under the same rules. The only thing that we don't do is we don't put in place everything that goes along with it with the emergency services. So we make all the internal organizations, the emergency planning, etc., that any of these sites would do. When it comes to the actual continuous improvement of the sites that are located in Europe, if CI actually means continuous improvement and the visits from the authorities, we welcome the visits from the authorities with open arms, and we try and work with them in a pragmatic way in order to improve the systems that we have in place. So we see these visits but by the regulatory authorities as being positive for us because it helps us improve, because I could not imagine ever having this type of event in a L'Oreal site. It would be a disaster for us, for our people, for the organization. So a company like L'Oreal and one of would actually say, look, you know, a lot of our image is on our brand image. You have a big fire with black smoke coming out of a facility like we can see in one of these events. That's not good for business. It's not good for L'Oreal. It's not good for the people. It's not good for anybody. So let's do everything we can to avoid it. And I'm just going to mention one more thing. Anybody out there that works for a multinational company, that they have Seveso sites or COMA sites within their organization in Europe, ask yourself the question, why don't we do that elsewhere? Why don't we try and manage the risk to the same level in other countries in the world?
Yeah.
Because the risk is the same. So if you really are multinational, international, thinking about the way you're protecting people and the environment, then we should be doing that globally. And that's our approach. It's not continuous improvement, doesn't exactly answer the question, but we welcome the visits from the authorities, and we work with them on improving our systems, because it's got to be for the benefit of everybody.
Thank you. Good answer.
You sure that was a good answer, Lee?
No, I did actually. I did. I like, we do a lot for the companies that are close to us, but we need to take it out to the third parties, to the third world, and some of the companies that need more of our help. And I think it is a good answer. I think we should look further than where we are today. We should branch out further with what we're doing.
And I think the multinational, international companies should have a corporate responsibility to actually do that, and not wait for it to be imposed on them.
Absolutely. And that is a great way to phrase it, to be fair. Yeah, no, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the last question, Malcolm.
No, I've got a question for you two first.
Okay, go on then.
So
is this where we disappear off screen?
That's not how
this is where
works,
you could
Malcolm.
disappear off screen. So what kind of football teams do you guys support? I mean, Chelsea is the #1, football team in the world, and I know you're going to admit to that because I'm the guest here and you're really nice people. But if you couldn't support Chelsea, what other teams would you support?
I'll start. I would support Liverpool, mate.
Oh, you would?
I would definitely, yeah. I'm a massive Liverpool fan. I'm hopeful after your great result against Atletico, we may see you somewhere around the final. And I think that would be absolutely fantastic. And you never know, you may be able to put the ghost goal right.
You never know, but you're going to have to improve. You're on a disastrous season so far, huh?
We are. Yeah, absolutely, mate. But you know what? It's been a tough season from all kinds of angles. I know there's been a lot of talk of excuses and things like that. But yeah, hopefully they'll learn. Hopefully Klopp will grow from it. I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will bring out his next Gangnam press, and he will have another idea, and hopefully we'll move forward next year and we can put this year behind us.
So how has COVID-19 and the people working from home more impacted your safety endeavours, coaching and relationships with colleagues? So have you worked with people remotely?
Wow. So do we have 4 hours for this one, or do you want the quick version?
We better do the quick.
Yeah.
So being that it's a Friday afternoon, Malcolm.
Yeah, you're right. It is. I actually would say it's improved. There's lots of positive. This COVID's really bad. It's impacted everybody in the world, but there's been a lot of positive things that have come out of it. And I think what we've been able to do a little bit, because the culture we have, we've got a very matrix culture. We're very quick at implementing new things, and we adapt quite quickly. And we have to do in our industry, whereby being first to market with a beauty product can make the difference between it being successful or not. So the organization is very resilient and it's adaptive. And when we adapted ourselves to the new way of working, which came from COVID very, very quickly, and because prior to COVID, we'd already had people working from home. We'd had a very advanced ergonomics program, whereby that included not only warm-up and stretching, risk assessments, but also vitality, nutrition. There was a desk-based risk assessment system in there, what you call display screen assessments, or whatever you call them in the UK. And what we just did is we've also got a website, an ergonomics website. We've got an app that's global. We updated all of that. We recommunicated it across the world, and it was a big hope to people, because we had, I think, if I remember right, up to about 60,000 people at one time that were actually working from home. The other thing that helped us is because L'Oréal tries to, from an HR, human resources point of view, be progressive. We've been working at home for quite a while, 1 or 2 days a week. My team, for example, for the last few years, have been working between 1 and 2 days per week at home, right? So as a result of that, our internal systems have already started to adapt to doing that kind of program of developing the relationships using Teams, doing presentations, discussions on Teams, on Zoom, etc. So for us, it was just a bit of an acceleration of what we already had in place and deployment across the board. Knowing that, right, that we had approximately 15,000 employees that were still manufacturing. Our manufacturing sites were open because we converted them from manufacturing the stuff that we would do normally to manufacturing hand sanitizer. We needed to manage cream because if you've used a lot of hand gel, you'll find your hand dries, etc. So there was a need still to provide that kind of stuff. People still need to wash their hair, you know, they still need to do hygiene products, etc. So we still needed to generate all of that. But at the same time, you know, converting to manufacturing hand sanitizer also helped us from a company point of view get through the difficult times when people were making people redundant, they were furloughing them, etc. We didn't have to do that at all. Okay, to any of our employees, which was a big plus. And my own point of view, and I can talk more from my own experience. So I would have meetings with my team 3 days a week, 15 minutes over coffee. We would play games. We would just chat about not work related, about gardening, about DIY, just to try and get away from it and create a different type of conversation, you know, and that created better links between me and my team. They got to know me better, the real Malcolm, should I say. I got to know them better. We laughed together. We created stories together. And it, from my point of view, the team knitted. It was a good team already, but we knitted much closer. So that was good. We've also got training programs out there that were already existing about things like stress, energy, and emotions, or was this the name of the training, which all managers do and the teams do. And again, that kind of approach prior to COVID of wanting to care for our people, do the right thing, etc., just helped in the COVID situation. The managers were better prepared, the employees were better prepared. COVID was difficult, you know, but we were lucky in the fact that we had lots of stuff already in place. We've been working on ergonomics, as I said before, for over 12 years, and it just gave us the right kind of platform to sort of build on and help our employees. And, you know, at the end of the day, going back to where I started, COVID's not been good. COVID's been bad for everybody in the entire world. But I think there have been a lot of positive things that have come out of it. And I think some of our strengths within L'Oreal is just that we care for people. And if you put people at the heart of what you do on a day-to-day basis, which is what we do in our profession, I think you just do the right thing, and people then are happy, they're more resilient, they want to go the extra mile, they understand that, you know, the situation's difficult, and no, they're much more agile, much more resilient if you care for them, and they feel as if they're cared for. Sometimes there's a difference between saying you care for people and somebody else perceiving that you care for people. From a psychological point of view, it has a bigger impact. So yeah. So I don't know whether I've really answered the question, but I think at the end of the day, it was good.
No.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to finish on one thing, because this is the last line, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the last. That's the last question.
Are you going to give me something to say at the end? Are you going to give me? Can I say something?
We'll let you do it.
Good. Right. So, going back to COVID, I think, you know, I said COVID it's not been a great event. It's just everybody across the board. 2 million people have died because of COVID, which is it's a worldwide disaster. And as a result, we've confined people in the houses. It's just going to raise other problems, whether it be mental health, whether it be people having economic issues, there's domestic violence, etc., etc., etc. But, you know, according to the ILO, there's 2.78 million people every year that die from a work-related illness or a work-related accident. Every single year. Yet, food for thought to leave you guys with this and everybody else, we don't stop people from going to work. right? We need work because of industry, because the risk is worth taking. But we need to do something about the 2.78 million people that die because they work. And that's what we do. And I think it's a great mission, what we do. I'm proud, really proud to be working in health and safety. I absolutely love what I do, but I also struggle with the fact that there are still a lot of people out there that don't go home at the end of the day and they leave work in a coffin. And I think we should all be trying to do something to do that around that, and we should focus on that. Should be our big focus.
We all come to work for, isn't it, really, in the health and safety profession? It's for that.
Yes. Yes. Well, pretty good, guys.
That is it. That is it, Malcolm. That's the first after-hour session. Hopefully, next time we'll be able to, be in a pub in St Albans and have an after-hour session there, which might be a little bit. It might be okay at the start, but might go awry a little bit in. So
I was waiting for you guys to say stop waffling. Because I just I think sometimes I get so wrapped up in loving what I do, the passion that I have, that I can just keep going on. If that's what the hummingbird does, huh? And if I can, at the end of the day, it's like when I do presentations, if somebody anywhere in the world takes away one little thing that they could maybe apply or something that gives them a good idea, then my job's done, huh?